tried to get him off, and he spoke with his mother. Talking to his mother and telling her how he had been wounded, but he hoped to see her soon. And this went on for, it seemed like a long time. He was dead the next morning. The next morning, we heard the tanks revving up. I wasn't sure whether they had to or whether they just wanted to frighten us. If the latter was the case, it was kind of successful. And as we watched a lineup of German infantry several hundred yards out formed, and they started moving in. Everyone held their fire until they were reasonably close and then opened up heavily. And their attacking line just sort of disappeared. If the 12th SS had been able to keep on going, there was nothing to stop them between the Canadian, Scottish, and the beach. The beach was empty of fighting troops entirely. If we hadn't been able to stop them and push them back, they'd have broke or cut the bridgehead in half, and the whole war could have been influenced very much to our detriment.
Jack Gallagher and the Caen Scots are heroic in their defense of Puteaux. It is a major victory for the Allied side in the first days of the Normandy campaign, but the fight is far from over. During the next week, the bridgehead battle intensifies, and Canadian soldiers find themselves face to face with the most vicious and murderous troops Hitler has to offer. In the 12th SS Panzer Division, Canadian soldiers face one of the most ruthless units in the German order of battle. Composed of fanatical teenagers immersed in Nazi ideology and led by SS veterans of the brutal war in Russia, the fighting in the Canadian sector quickly takes on a sinister and criminal tone.
Well, they were deadly enemies, weren't they? They were rotten little devils, they were.
Even as prisoners, the Hitler youth maintain a cold arrogance.
We'd captured some of them. The major was interviewing one little bugger, spitting in the major's face. The major put him up against the wall. He was sharp with knives. He didn't kill him. He fired at him, but both sides, like you see in the movies. The little SS never made a move. Never made a move. They were tough. They were.
During the first 10 days in Normandy, 1 out of every 7 Canadian soldiers killed were murdered after capture by the 12th SS. The most famous incident happens here at the Abbaye des Ardennes, where 27 Canadians are gunned down. These are not heat-of-battle killings, but cold-blooded executions of unarmed prisoners of war. Another little-known, but equally dark chapter in this saga begins in this wheat field near the village of Le Mini-Patrie, in the wake of a disastrous attack by the Queen's Own and 1st Hussars Tank Regiment. Bill Bettridge vividly recalls the events of June 11th, 1944.
I was in headquarters company.
alongside of a big stone wall, and I could see these tanks going by me. It was D Company was riding on top of the tanks. And they went down the road, and it seemed like this little yard, I don't know whether it was an orchard or not, they seemed to turn. I could hear the tanks going in that direction.
It is the last time that Bill will see many of the men from D Company. Unknown to them, they are running straight into a heavily camouflaged German position.
So all of a sudden there's a whole pile of shooting, machine gun fire, heavy 88 fire. We're counterattacked, we're beaten back, and a lot of people killed, an awful lot of people killed.
Bill Bettridge returns to Le Mini-Patrie for the first time since that fateful day in June 1944. Memories also return.
But for me, the Germans were holding all that. It's a bit of a high ridge there if you look at it. And that's the kind of country they like to get in and hide behind, because you got to come up to them. The 12 Div are smart soldiers. They waited till they got right up close and all D Company. I think there's 115 went in on that attack. It might have been the whole day. And I think only 35 come back. And this was one of the tougher ones, almost as bad as D-Day.
The horrific nature of the brief but fierce fight becomes clear the next day when Bill is ordered to search for Canadian dead and wounded.
Bert Shepard, Charlie Martin, and I were on a patrol over the area they traveled. And we found, I think it was 6, might have been 7 of our Queen's Own guys all dead. Had a bullet hole in their head. We noticed one of them had a small Bible we carry in our pockets, had it out, reading it for help, I guess. Another one had the bolt open, ready to fire a shot, which he never ever got to do. The bolt hadn't been pushed back in, which is another proof that somebody shot him in the head. And another one had the rifle. He had just spent a bullet because his bolt was closed. All these things add up to the fact that after the tanks retreated from there, the Germans got up and started searching for anybody that was still alive. And they just put a bullet through all their heads. So the 6 of them were all killed, all murdered.
"116 Canadians are killed near Le Mini-Patrie, where this memorial now stands. But 123 names appear on its face. 7 of these men did not die in the fields outside the town on June 11th, but met their fate days later in the village of Mouen, 5 kilometers behind German lines. The only record of the demise of 6 soldiers from the Queen's Own and 1 from the 1st Hussars Tank Regiment is contained in this war crimes investigation file from 1944. Included among more than 100 pages of testimony from villagers, Allied officials, and SS prisoners are photographs that document the events of June 17th, 1944. There is no information as to how the men survived the 6 days after the Le Mini battle. Only the fact that the Germans eventually stumble across them while they hide in no man's land. It is believed they are cut off during the battle, unable to find their way back to Canadian lines, leaving them without ammunition, food, water, and in a state of complete exhaustion. After capture, the soldiers are brought here to the mayor's house in Mouen, used at the time as SS headquarters. Bill Bettridge is the first Queen's Own to visit Mouen, and the first to walk the same path